go ahead and call the meeting to order. Will you please rise and join me in the pledge to our flag? I pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all. No actions were taken in closed session, and at this time, I will entertain a motion to adopt the agenda.
So moved. Second.
Oh, as amended.
So moved.
Second.
It's been moved and seconded. All those in favor, please say aye.
Aye.
Opposed? Abstentions? Motion carries unanimously. Move on to communications, and we'll start with public comment. This is an opportunity for individuals to address the board on an item that is not on the agenda. Please know that while we may not comment here, we are definitely listening and will work to address your questions or concerns. If you are here and would have an item that you'd like to discuss with the board, please feel free to step up to the mic and do so. And if you are watching us online, please do so by just filling out the comments there in the comment section, and we'll give you a few minutes in case there is someone who would like to address an item that's not on the agenda. That is an interesting shot.
Yeah.
Make sure
That your agent?
that was not me.
Oh, that wasn't your agent.
This was not my agent. Yeah, he would definitely be asking, they're not getting your good side. That is, however, a very nice view of the light fixture. Okay, seeing no comments, we'll go ahead and we'll move on. Okay, now we move on to reports. We'll start with the Robla Education Foundation. Do not see a representative here. Did anyone receive anything from Mr. Evan? Okay, then we'll move on to Robla Teachers Association, CSEA, and Superintendent.
Good evening. Good evening, everyone. I did want to report out about the California Department of Public Health Vaccination Clinic, excuse me, that was held in the Robla School District on December 4th. The information I received is that we did give out about 150 COVID-19 vaccines on that day, both adults and children. I want to thank everyone who works in the Robla School District who helped to make that happen. We definitely had to support the work, and I think, did a great job logistically of helping that to happen. We learned some good lessons that will be ways to improve in the future if we're able to do this again. And we are, of course, very grateful to the California Department of Public Health for supporting this and making it happen in our community. I did have the pleasure of attending the CSBA, California School Boards Association Conference, December 2nd through 4th in San Diego. And there was a wide variety of interesting speakers and sessions. We had lots of opportunities to discuss that, the board and I, when we were together. Mrs. Mollisbean attended as well. I would share that probably the most engaging person I heard was Joseph Johnson Jr. from the National Center for Urban School Transformation. He happened to be the speaker at the Association of Black School Board Members. Mr. Barnes and I were able to hear him that day. And he, his message was simple. There are places in this country, they have been doing lots of research, and there are definitely places in this country, public schools that have no special entry guidelines, where African American students are outperforming everybody else. And That happens way too infrequently, and we need to make sure that we are paying attention to what's happening there. And kind of the gist of what I took away from that is he reminds us, and I think we do a pretty good job of this in Robla, that it's never helpful to blame the students for their flaws. If the students aren't succeeding, it's really us in the system that are not succeeding, and we need to work to get it right. So it was very inspiring for me. The Strings Project Winter Concert, I'd like to remind everybody, takes place this coming Monday on December 13th at 6:30 at California State University, and we hope that any and all will come out for this very wonderful event. I really missed it last year, so I'm excited to attend this year. And then finally tonight, just wanted to be sure everyone is aware that we do have our winter wish list activity that's coming up. This is something that we do to support our needy families in the Robla School District. We get tons of support from Sac Republic on this, and we plan to support 100 different families who will receive food, coats for the children, and toys for the children and their family. Our schools have helped us to identify which families are in need. And we are working, today there was a big toy collection at Cal Expo, and we will be putting all these toys together along with the shopping, I guess. Well, someone told me it might be in his report, so I won't say that, but apparently it was on the news as well, and about buying coats. And we're just really thrilled for this support, and I'd like to thank Erica Lee, our wellness coordinator, who really kind of takes on all of this responsibility on the district side to help to make this happen with lots of support from these other organizations. And that ends my report. Thank you.
Thank you, Trustee Reyes. Now we'll move on to board member reports, and we'll start with Trustee Devine.
Oops, sorry about that. I attended the vaccine clinic on last Saturday, and it went very, very well. There was a lot of coloring activities for the children. Everybody seemed very at ease, and I want to thank all the staff who showed up to get their booster shots, as well as all the parents who took their children in for their first shots and got their boosters themselves. So thank you very much.
Okay, Trustee Cardona.
Yeah, we had the opportunity to attend also the California conference in San Diego. As well, we learned so much too. A lot of new topic, a lot of people were there too. Come up with a lot of information that hopefully we can utilize for our school and to try to get our kids and our teachers and our school members to be on board. Thank you.
Okay.
Could I just interject here to remind the board, turn on your microphones and be sure you're speaking into your microphones. We might be a little bit out of practice, but just so that everybody can hear. Thank you.
Thank you. Sorry.
Trustee Barnes.
Thank you. And my mic is on. Excuse me. As mentioned, I was able to attend the CSBA conference, and it was nice to be able to attend. And one thing I found is that great minds think alike, because we all kind of attended some of the same workshops, even though we didn't see each other in them. So we had great minds think alike, and Ruben, Superintendent Reyes, and I were in the same Black School Board members luncheon, and that was a fantastic luncheon. And one of the things that I really liked about that one was that they did the comparison between schools that weren't really hitting the mark and schools that were hitting the mark. And they had the comments on the schools that were hitting the mark. And that's something that I've kind of thought about before, that we should be focusing on, we should also be focusing on the kids who are getting it right, who are doing well. And I love the fact that they did that focus. And that was very positive. And excuse me, that part of the luncheon was a big hit, because everyone was taking pictures of the slides and things like that. And I have some pictures which I'll share at some point. But I do want to reiterate that it would be nice to focus on that part as well, because we often focus on those who need help, but we don't really focus on a lot on those who are doing really well. So I love that fact. One of the other workshops that I attended that I thought was great was the California's Fiscal and Economic Outlook. I won't get into a lot of great details because I know someone else probably will. But the main thing is that the outlook is actually really positive for California, and I'm happy to see that. And there are some other nuances that go along with that, but I was happy to see that because we haven't had a lot of good news in the last 18 months or so, and so this was kind of a bright spot. And those are the major things that that I saw. I'm still working on putting together a nice little report for everyone of the ones that I attended, but it was overall, it was a great conference, and I was really glad to see such a strong presence there, and that great minds think alike.
Trustee Boyd?
Yeah, I also had the pleasure of attending the conference, and I think one of the best workshops I attended was on mental health being of students and staff, which I have been concerned about in this time, and we got a lot of good information. It was put on by Stanislaus County, another SCOE office, and something I'm planning to talk to the superintendent about. But there was some real good information on how to measure wellness, and as they're doing that, they're doing pretty good with their district as far as addressing the issues. I also just treasure the time that we get to spend thanks to CFW's dinner they provide us, but we get as a board and everybody, spouses and children get together and have a good time without having to worry about the Brown Act. And it's really the only time of the year we really do get to sit around and just talk and forget about business. And I enjoyed that a lot. And one last thing, I was watching Channel 3 News last night as the superintendent mentioned Sac Republic was on there talking about what they're going to do, and all of a sudden I heard one of them talking about Robla and how they're going to provide stuff, but it caught me by surprise. They said some nice positive things about Robla, but I can't tell you what it was right now, but you might be able to go back and see that on last night's 5 o'clock news. That's all I have.
All right. As stated with the rest of the board, I had an opportunity to attend the California School Board Association conference. I attended the Fiscal Outlook workshop, and what I liked is that they did a lot to help us to understand exactly what the state's finances look like. The fact that we do depend, our revenue depends heavily on the investment class, which even though unemployment was high and economic output seemed to be down, overall investments seem to be up, which is one of the reasons why we saw such a significant surplus. What seemed to be good about what they're planning on spending that is a lot of it is going into one-time dollars. So in other words, they're not investing a whole lot into ongoing programs, which basically means that it reduces the likelihood of there being cuts if there isn't actually an economic downturn. So that was actually very good. And the amount of money that they're actually looking to spend and invest into infrastructure, up to $10 billion is what they're looking at for K-12 infrastructure. So that will be that will be phenomenal. I'm also a member of the Delegate Assembly, which is the kind of elected representatives from across the state who help develop policy and policy positions for the California School Boards Association. There was one item that came up that we were, members of the Delegate Assembly were somewhat concerned with. You all know that the governor came out with the vaccination mandate for students. And I don't know if it was the executive committee or just the president, but the executive committee came out and put out a statement stating that the California School Boards Association fully supports the governor's vaccination mandate. Members of the Delegate Assembly had a real concern with that because it doesn't take effect until July. There was plenty of opportunity for them to discuss it with members of the Delegate Assembly, in particular with school board members, because in the end, people aren't going to be going to them to find out why we took this position. They're going to be coming to us as school board members. Regardless of what our position is on the particular mandate, we felt like we had well, we just had a delegate assembly and we've got another one coming up in May, and we felt like it should have been something that was brought to the policy body of the delegate assembly in order to discuss and get our position prior to taking a position. And one of the things that I wanted to be able to do was I wanted to write a letter to the CSBA president to that effect, but I really felt like it would be better if I did so with the blessing of the board. If you felt like it's something that's just better not left addressed, then it's something that I'll leave alone. But I really would appreciate your input on it. And once again, it's not taking a position on the mandate, but largely just saying, when we have it's more a function of process. If we have an opportunity to discuss in particular an item that is as politically charged as this is, it's probably better if we have the time to bring it to the policy body, then we probably ought to bring it to the policy body and have the discussion. Any thoughts?
I don't disagree.
I agree. Yeah. Really, yeah.
Okay. Well, with that, I thank you for your input. It's been an honor. It truly is an honor representing the board on the delegate assembly and representing this district. So I want to make sure that I accurately represent our district.
Well, just to interrupt, I'm actually glad that you are representing, because I know that you are passionate about that. With this, I do agree with you, but yeah, it's just nice to have representation from us down there on the delegate. So thank you.
Okay,
I
and
would agree with Mr. Barnes too, what he says there. Thank you for your time.
Thank you.
thank you. Okay, so we'll move on to presentations. And we will start with SPSA updates from, I guess we'll go in order, and we'll start with Bell Avenue.
No, Mrs.
Or do we have a
Lyon.
particular
Were you
order?
going to do an introduction, Mrs. Lyon? Okay,
Okay,
so we'll
there we
start
go.
with her, and then I think she has an order that she.
Okay, I'm totally
Is
flexible.
planning, okay.
No worries. Is this on? I can't tell with my mouse. Okay, thank
But
you.
you have to be close to it.
Be close, okay.
there you go.
So I just wanted to take a moment before we have 3 of our 5 principals come up and share with you a little bit about what would normally be just talking about their SIPSA, where we are with the data, because this is the time of year normally that we would get our data from the state. But as you know, it's just not a normal year. So I just wanted to take a moment to remind the board that when the principals wrote their SIPSA for the 21-22 school year was in March, April, and May of 2021. We thought we'd be coming back to a normal or more normal school year. And of course, it's been anything but that. So Superintendent Reyes and Mr. Penman have been sharing what we've been doing in terms of local data, since we don't have our dashboard data with the board. And the principals are just going to take just a few minutes to kind of share with you how they're navigating the waters right now. I felt that it was probably more appropriate for them to touch on their SIPSAs, but really just talk a little bit more about what is actually happening right now at the school sites and how they're navigating all the challenges that they're facing right now. Okay?
Sounds good.
All righty. So would you like to go first? So first up, we're going to have Main Avenue. Sarah Newhouse, our principal for Main Avenue.
All right.
Hey, good evening. Can you hear me? Okay. All right, so I'm going to share a little bit of an update for where we are with Main Avenue. So our first 3 goals for our plan are English language arts, math, and English learner development. And we're spending a significant amount of time in our grade level and site PLCs and staff meetings looking at assessment data and trying to return to the work of vertical articulation that we started pre-COVID. Is it cutting out?
A little bit, but we got you. You're doing fine.
This articulation focused on targeted standards in writing and math. We're currently focused on writing. Earlier in the year, each grade level identified key standards that have continuity across all grade levels. This starts in TK and K with fine motor, moves through primary grades with letter formation and sentence structure, and then into the intermediate grades with paragraph writing and responding to text. Each grade level set a measurable goal that we will discuss when we return in January after having had time to address it in their instruction. Is it my mask? Okay. We also spend time during our staff meetings and PLCs looking at our data for district-wide assessments. We follow a similar protocol of looking for any trends or patterns, implications, and set an action plan. We call this the here's what, so what, now what protocol, and this is one that we're using throughout the district as we dig into our data. Because many of our students have significant gaps in their learning due to last year's circumstances, we're spending time looking at ways to adjust our instructional approaches as grade level and intervention teams. We continue to use workshop time and other times of day to implement the differentiated instruction approach. We have found that there are also key skills that most of a classroom needs that are roadblocks to accessing the grade level curriculum. Grade level teams have identified these specific skills and are working to address them. They must also balance the time needed to work on them along with the grade level curriculum. And this means prioritizing the components of the curriculum. In order to do this successfully, teachers have these important discussions in PLCs and with the support of our PLST, Michelle Critt. We've not had a PLST on site at Maine, and her presence has been fantastic. She knows the staff and students, having been a teacher at Maine Avenue. She meets with teachers to focus on source strategies, analyze assessment data, and lesson plan with our newer teachers. Our MTSS team continues to meet once a month and focuses on supporting students in the Tier 2 areas of behavior and academics. Our goal of school climate and student engagement is one where we are heavily invested in because the transition back to full-time in-person learning has been challenging. As I've shared in prior presentations, we're implementing zones of regulation site-wide. This curriculum is a series of lessons that gives staff and students tools to learn to recognize and name emotions, self-regulate, identify triggers and the size of the problem, and use positive language with each other and themselves. We have visuals throughout the campus for students to access, and one of them is cards that we carry on our lanyards to use in the moment with the student. Our CSC, Jenna Ruby, and our social worker, Elisa Omo, are working with specific grade levels who need further support in zone lessons, as well as in running class meetings and restorative circles. These help build classroom communities, relationships, and teach strategies for how to respond to conflicts and problems that arise. For our newer staff who did not receive the zones training we did last spring, or for staff who want further professional development, Mrs. Ruby and I are working to set up some PD for staff to continue to support them in the zones implementation. And we're finding that we really need to spend considerable time in this area for social emotional learning for our students, and this is a worthwhile investment of our time. We continue our character trait assemblies via Zoom because we can't yet have large all-school gatherings in the cafeteria, but we wanted to continue with this tradition now that we're in person. We're weaving our zones in with our monthly character traits, and we're having students share writing and artwork that they've done. We recognize students weekly who have earned our Panther Paws, and this we're able to do during the lunchtime with students so that they can honor each other and learn to celebrate their peers. Our office staff is diligently working to stay on top of our attendance, and this is a bit challenging because we have to quickly adjust with independent study work for students who are falling out ill. And we want to ensure that they have work to complete while they're staying at home during that time. We're also having pre-SART conversations with families whose children's absences are high due to non-illness related issues, and we want to work with families to rectify the attendance prior to having a SART contract if we can. With our parent involvement goal, we're introducing zones to our families so they can use it at home with their children. We started with a handout at parent conferences that had introductory information along with 2 QR codes that connected them to a video and an additional resource. In January and February, we're engaging families in a zones lesson about optimism and your inner and outer coach and critic. This is about self-talk. We will give some resources and an interactive activity for them to participate in. Because we can't do large in-person gatherings, we're trying to find other ways to engage with our families. I'm currently gathering the data on our recent parent conference turnout, and what I'm seeing so far is that it's been a strong one. Teachers are still reaching out to our parents that we weren't able to conference with because we really try to meet with every single parent. We had them in person, but we also allowed for parents to meet over Zoom if they were unable to come in person, and we felt keeping this option was a very important one. Just to end, I want to add that on top of coming back to a full reopening, we're hosting 3 classes from Robla and 5 from Bell as the bed and breakfast of the district, so that they can have their construction projects. And this is just, of course, an added strain and stress for everyone involved. Moving sites and hosting colleagues has its challenges, but even with this, it brings opportunities for the main staff to work with the great Bell and Robla teachers who have joined us, and it's been a great experience, as it was when we hosted Taylor Street. All of our certificated and classified staff members are really the ones who help make these school plans come alive. And I think it's important that we recognize that it's their work, and we really appreciate their time and their efforts. Okay? And then just to, if you'd like, I can pass this around. This was the pamphlet on zones that we sent to our families during parent conferences, if you'd like to take a look.
Very much so, thank you.
Right, do you have any questions?
I have a quick
Yes.
question. You had mentioned the card on the lanyard. I don't know if I understood right. It's just saying what zone you're in, or is it like helping aids for what to do in a situation?
So it has the 4 zones, and if a child is having a moment for whatever reason, we can sit down with them. They can identify what zone they're in, and then it has strategies to talk them through why they're in that zone, and then we can talk about strategies to maybe if they need to calm down, take a breather, and then how to work them back out of that zone back into the green zone.
Oh, that sounds amazing. Is that included in the flyer, what it says on the lanyards, or?
Yeah, there's it explains the zones in here. And so we're trying to connect our families with this information as well, because we feel it's beneficial for them to be able to use at home. So all of our staff carry these on our lanyards throughout the day. Staff even use them for themselves, because we go into zones as well, just like our children. And I think students are also learning too that adults have zones as well. And so that's an important discussion that we have with them too.
Thank you for clarifying that.
Sure.
for me.
First of all, the zones you're talking about is similar to something they were talking about at Stanislaus County on their mental wellness thing. That was part of it. But during the parent conferences, did you have many parents coming to you asking about their concerns for the mental well-being of their children?
I haven't heard that much from teachers specifically, but I think when we showed them this, because they've had children coming home talking about their zones, and some of the parents weren't quite clear about what their children were saying, and then when we gave them this, they went, oh, that's what the red zone is, or the green zone. And so giving them this information was good, that we were starting to share this with them, because they're now connecting what they're learning at school and what they're coming home with.
I think it's good, and I think you should be commended for addressing that issue. Thank you.
2 quick questions. One, can we get a copy of the notes, because I don't see one here. And
I can send you a copy of the notes, absolutely.
Yeah, I was trying to write some stuff down, but there's too many details.
Yes, I can forward them to all of you if you like.
And second question was, what's the ratio of in-person to Zoom parent meetings?
We're still collecting the data, so I don't have a breakdown of it yet, but once I do have it, it's something I can send to the board, because we're still meeting with parents. I've asked teachers to hold off on giving me all the final information until right before we go on to break. I think we had a higher percentage in person than on Zoom, because we really did encourage for in-person meetings, because parents really can't come onto campus due to our policies with COVID. So they can't really come into the classroom very much. And so this was a really great opportunity for them to come in and see their child's classroom, see where their artwork is on the wall, see where they sit every day. So we really wanted to encourage an in-person conference. But we also wanted to keep the opportunity if they needed to meet over Zoom because maybe they weren't feeling well, or they had work issues or daycare issues. But once I get more concrete data, I can certainly send that along, and it would be in my new plan for information.
Have you observed any differences between the two meetings?
I think with a Zoom meeting, as opposed to what we used to do more so with telephone conferences, a Zoom meeting allows still for that at least a face-to-face connection, and we can screen share the report card. Whereas when you had a phone conference, you didn't have that ability to be able to actually talk about the report card, and you're both seeing it at the same time.
Any other questions, comments? Thank you so very much.
Thank you, Ms. Newhouse.
See if I can master the microphone here. Good evening, everyone. I hope everyone had a happy Thanksgiving holiday, and you're getting ready for the winter holidays that are coming up. I just wanted to begin by updating the school board and on our school's progression, and as far as we're going to talk about two things tonight, because that's primarily where my funding is focused on. So first of all, I know you have heard me talk about the use of GLAD strategies in the past. Currently, the majority of my staff is GLAD trained and certified. However, we do have a few new teachers at our school that they've not been through the 8-day training. Currently, they are offering training for GLAD, but it's all remote. And we were, as a staff that's been using GLAD for quite a while, felt like the remote training wasn't quite as strong. And really some of the kind of the beauty of the GLAD training are the in-person observations that the teachers get to participate in. And so we decided to hold off until those in-person trainings are offered again. We do have quite a few staff members on campus that are very strong in the area of GLAD, and so they've been able to support our new teachers, and we feel like that's been pretty adequate at this point. So this year, our school site council once again had allocated resources from the Title I budget, giving the teachers planning time, which is crucial if you're going to be taking on GLAD. The units are very intensive. They are typically about 6 weeks long, and the teachers are literally creating them from building them themselves. It takes a lot of time. Our teaching staff met for 2 full days during the summer, so they take their own time, and we're able to compensate them for that to get the bulk of the planning done for the first unit. Typically, the GLAD planning days are focused on creating integrated science and social studies units. However, this year was very different, so we really needed to think differently. Our school team decided that we were going to begin the year working to help students get acclimated to attending school 6 hours a day, 5 days a week, which they hadn't done in quite a while. And some of our younger students, school was a brand new experience. Our staff knew that teaching self-regulation and emotional control strategies would be beneficial for students, helping them to stay focused, function, and making successful progress in our classroom settings. So in order to teach self-regulation and emotional control, we knew it would be beneficial to keep our message and language as uniform as possible as a school. So we committed to using the zones of regulation curriculum, much like what Sarah has described. And it made sense for us to create our first GLAD unit centered around zones. So with the support of our PLST Lindsay Hall and our CSC Jenna Ruby, we did some training for our staff because some of our staff had not been through the zones of regulation training, and we were able to create grade level appropriate zones units with the GLAD strategies that lasted for the first few weeks of the school year. So that was our primary focus for the first several weeks. Students were reading about, writing about, organizing, sorting, creating, and discussing as a group ways to have successful peer relationships and strategies that empowered them to be able to self-regulate. Since then, our grade level teams have continued to work on their GLAD units, but they're more typical. They're more science or social studies focused. And we have a couple of grade levels now that have been working to integrate the new TWIG science curriculum, because we do have a big new science curriculum that our district, as you know, has adopted. And so we're working to integrate that into our GLAD units. It hasn't happened school-wide, but we are working on it in one primary grade and one intermediate grade at this point. The other big primary focus of our school plan right now would be intervention. We knew that many students would return to school with a different degree of learning loss. Therefore, intervention has been at the top of our grade level and site PLC agendas. Our staff has worked during grade level and site PLCs to analyze the student data from current assessments to plan interventions that would help meet student needs. Teachers have spent time analyzing data to find out what important reading and math skills students were missing and how to fit the instruction needed for those skills into the school day. And it's a real challenge because they have their typical grade level curriculum and standards that they need to address, but they're also backtracking and trying to meet the students where they are. As a group, we discussed the management of differentiating instruction as well as the importance of accessing and utilizing materials that were not necessarily grade level materials. So teachers are really having to go back 1 or 2 years, maybe 3 years, in order to help meet the needs of the students. So it's taking a lot of collaboration across the grade level teams because of the large gaps in the students' academic progress. While analyzing and organizing academic interventions, teachers have also identified crucial skills that are lacking for the majority of their students. So we talked a lot about small group intervention, but in their analyzing of the data, they also were able to identify large, kind of like, we call them like large roadblocks, like these big skills that were really preventing the entire class from accessing grade level curriculum. Okay, so we're working on small group intervention, but they're also working with their class as a whole on identified skills that were needed for the whole entire group. And one of the activities that we've been doing is they've been writing 3 goals during their PLC, and they write so they're writing very specific goals with percentages and timelines, and then we have them posted. Currently, they're posted in our staff lounge so that the entire school is aware of what the focus is for each grade level. And that's been helpful just to keep everyone focused, as well as when, for example, a 3rd grade teacher sees that, second grade's working on something or vice versa, and they know something about that, or they have some curriculum or some type of activity or strategy that they have that they can share with their colleague. It's helpful to have things posted and visible so that everyone is aware and able to collaborate. So that's been a great, I think, it's been good for the teachers to recognize that it's not just small group intervention that they're thinking about whole group, and then the district allowing the teachers to meet the kids where they are and not necessarily holding them to these really tight pacing guides that were nearly impossible for the teachers to keep up with And I think that that has really, Mr. Penman and Mr. Reyes, we've talked a lot about the fact that we really need to look at where the kids are and meet them where they are and not necessarily where they normally would be at this point in time during the school year. And so we appreciate the understanding and the recognition. The grade level goals, so they're currently posted, and what I've noticed is that teachers are walking by with different markers and they'll change their goals as they see it, and they're like, oh, we've already done that, so they've upped it, or oh, I need more time, so they've switched the timelines on things. So it's like kind of a flexible, fluid activity, which it's been really helpful. I will say that in order to make all of this happen, we have, we have a very highly collaborative staff at Bell Avenue School. And then we also have a lot of support from our PLST, Lindsay Hall, and our CSC, Jenna Ruby. I think the teaching team that we have, plus the support of those two people, are really making the year possible, because it has been a very challenging school year for the staff, for the students, in general. So that's kind of what our academic focuses have been right now. And then as well as, we are packing and moving into a new building right now, which we're really excited about, but that too has been challenging. And so the teachers are working hard to get packed, to purge. That's really hard for teachers to do. They seem to want to hold on to a lot of stuff. So we're really working on helping them to let go of their old files and things that they don't really need anymore, and so that we can move out of our current classrooms and allow for the modernization plans to move forward. So that's kind of been a big focus. The kids are really excited about the new building that we're moving into, and the parents and families have been highly supportive, and they're very excited to see what's to come at Bell as well. So, and that's all I have for now, unless there's any questions or comments or questions.
I actually do. I want to say, first of all, it sounds like you guys are trying your hardest to get everything working and back on track, but I do actually have a question about the GLAD certification. Mm-hmm. We asked our students to do Zoom online learning for close to 2 years. Can't we ask our teachers to do the GLAD certification? It's a very important thing online as well.
We could.
Because you said you were waiting for it to be in person.
Well, the reason why I felt like it was important for it to be in person is it's a really collaborative professional development, and part of the 8 days you spend in a classroom watching a trainer teach a class of students.
Okay.
And then you leave that classroom and you collaborate with your colleagues and you plan, and then you go back into the classroom. So it's a really interactive training that I feel is best done in person.
Okay, that makes sense.
Because you're in an actual classroom with actual students that are at a variety of different learning levels, and I think it really, for me, we have talked about a lot as a staff, because we've now waited 2 years for training to be back in person again. But for me, I feel like there's something missed when it's not in person.
Thank you for clarifying that.
And the other piece of that is I have some really highly trained teachers on my staff that are able to support our GLAD strategies and GLAD lessons. So if we were all very new to it, I think that there would be a benefit to moving forward and going ahead and doing the Zoom GLAD training. But because I have a pretty supportive and knowledgeable staff, I think we're able to kind of work with it until it's, back to what we would hope.
You just answered my second question. So thank you. I'm glad that your other staff are stepping in.
Yeah, the other piece of that is that the GLAD training happens during the school day, and we need substitutes for that. So that's another thing, is that we have to cover classrooms. Teachers go as a team to the training, so usually we're covering like 4 or 5 classrooms. And that currently right now that wouldn't be possible
Perfect. Okay, it makes a lot more sense. Thank you so much for answering that, and I hope it didn't come off rude.
Oh, no, that's fine.
You know, it sounds like, listening to what's going on and what I've been observing from the year, it's like, they had a bag full of cats and they all came out and they're trying to get them back in. But I really have to commend the innovative things that you're coming up with for something that is totally, foreign. And I know you're doing your best, and it sounds encouraging. And on top of that, moving to the new school, I know it's kind of a thrill to have the new school, but at this time, we never anticipated that COVID was gonna happen too. But one of the questions we kind of were talking about, are we gonna do CAP testing this year? CAP testing? We are? Okay. So, and is it gonna be graded on the same level? I mean, is there gonna be any leeway for? Okay. Thank you.
Yeah, I think that it's important to do some type of, snapshot for where the kids are so that we know,
Yeah.
it's not ideal because it's another stressor on the students and on the staff, but I do think that at some point we need to have like a really accurate
Yeah, I agree
assessment of
with
what's
that.
happening.
Without putting as much emphasis on what the district, what the school has done to do it, I think we need that snapshot too. I think totally agree with that. Yeah.
But I mean, again, I want to reiterate, I think with all that's going on in the district, with the kids and the families and everything that's happening, both, because of the pandemic, and then we have a lot going on, as Sarah mentioned, with the moving and hosting students at one site, and it really, the staff in the district has made this happen, like the teachers and the office staff and the custodians and the bus drivers and everybody that's involved, the food service, has really made what could be really, really challenging, something that seems really manageable. So I just appreciate, the Robla, just Robla in general, but
We are the Robla family, right?
it's a lot, and I think it seems like it's manageable because of who is helping, so.
One of the things I wanted to note was I thought it was really innovative to have the goals, like you talked about having them in the staff lounge where people can see them and people can make adjustments to them, because I think it does two things. One is, like you said, it provides that collaborative opportunity for people to help one another with their goals, and there's a level of accountability when you make your goals public. It's a little bit there's a level of accountability that's there where people are going to work to try and help you to get to that. And then the other thing is having people being able to make adjustments to their goal. When people do that to their goals, it gives other people permission to adjust and make appropriate adjustments. I thought that was a really innovative and a really good idea, and I wanted to commend you on that.
Yeah, I think, as Sarah mentioned, articulating and collaborating across grade levels we've done that in the past, but I think right now it's even more important because we're finding that teachers are having to work with curriculum and do interventions that are kind of outside of what they would normally be doing because of the size of the learning loss and gaps and stuff like that. So it's been really even more important than normal.
Thank you so much.
Thank you.
Thanks, Mrs. Hall.
I'm not that tall at all. Superintendent Reyes and ladies and gentlemen of the board, want to give you an update as to what we've been doing at Glenwood, and everything they said, we're doing. No, I'm just kidding. Going last, but what am I going to say again? But I do think that one of the common themes this year at Glenwood has been construction and updating on more than just one level. Physically, obviously, we have a brand new kindergarten building that's being built in New Hope right next to us. So that is going to, cause space challenges, parking lots, traffic to operations. And then obviously COVID, keeping distance, keeping students safe. But the other piece to that is we're also having 7 brand new teachers. So that's a whole new set of teachers that are coming in within the school year, which is kind of that upgrading as well. Um, I can tell you that the modernization is actually going to be really great to see because it's almost done. And looking at those classrooms, those students are really going to get just a great experience in there. And that, thank you to everybody who's been really working hard behind the scenes to make it happen. And New Hope is going to open up as well right next to us starting on Monday, I hope. And one of the things I really like about that is that, our parents, they see that school and they start to already connect to it. And for me, as the principal at Glenwood with the dual language immersion program, being able to have our students have a pathway to continue their dual language education is important. As this year at the dual language immersion program strand, we have now 4th grade. So that is exciting. 5 years ago, it's my 5th year. We have 4th grade students, and that's awesome to see. Also, we're looking into doing a dual language immersion self-assessment. One of the things about having to come back and pick up the pieces and find out where we are, even as a program, looking at what have we done in these 5 years, what do we need to improve on, and what have we done well. And also looking at how do we look at our program implementation, the language acquisition, and parent and community involvement. So that's something that we're definitely looking to upgrade, right, and make sure that we're on the right track. Our academics, like my colleagues have said, we're using as much available data as we can during our PLCs, during our grade level meetings, using the protocol that was spoken of earlier, the what, so what, now what, so that we can really have a standardized way of looking at data across the board. As you know, data can be looked at a whole bunch of different ways, but if we're all talking about the same thing, then we can, get to a better conclusion. And of course, looking at GLAD, which is something that I know that Lisa had spoken about earlier, and it is very important for us. As we lose teachers who've been trained, we have to train new ones, especially having 7 new teachers. It's going to be important for us to really invest in GLAD, and I know that the online component is awesome. And I think that we would have more bang for our buck if it's in person versus not in person. So that's one of the things that we were able to do, as well as implemented a rotation schedule this year, like a win time, so that our students can have more hands on deck, have smaller class sizes when we're trying to do our ELD specific lessons. And so that I think is something that is really starting to catch on. A lot of the other schools are doing that as well. And I really like that we're starting to try that out as well, and really adjusting our schedule to fit students' needs instead of putting student needs around the schedule, right? And then for us, as far as parent outreach, we're continuing to do Coffee with the Principal, only that it's hasn't been catching on as much because it had been going from online to now trying to recapture our parent population, which has been a pretty strong one. I'm imagining once we open the front of the school back up, we'll be able to start getting more parents to come to the Coffee with the Principal events. But we have been able to do some really good community builders with our Harvest Festival. We're going to have a holiday drive-through as well that'll be coming up. And then, of course, put an emphasis on progress monitoring, making sure that we're able to see where our students, how much progress they're doing throughout the way, through SSTs, using the MTSS process. And one of the things that we're also continuing to do is looking at PBIS rewards as our digital Gator Gold PBIS reward system. One of the things that we're also doing is every week, Mr. Khan does a video raffle that gets played at every classroom, and so the students get to see who the raffle winners are. It's actually built a pretty, Mr. Khan has a cult following now. Students are saying, "When are you going to have another video?" But you know, we want to make sure that when we are starting to get back to normal, or hopefully better than normal, you know, we have equity in mind, we have self-care in mind, and that's something that's important because we talk about it, but we don't do it as much. And it's easy to say self-care. And so, you know, every staff meeting, I'm trying to make sure that we're doing just the little things, you know, whether it's 4-count breathing, whether it's mindful sits, just making sure that as the adults, we're practicing it first so that, you know, when we put on the mask, before we put it on the kids, we've got to put it on ourselves. And that's my report. Questions?
So we have been discussing learning loss. How does it seem that has there been any social skill loss? Like, are we addressing that at all?
Actually, yeah, there is a lot of social skill loss. One of the great things that we're doing, and I think all schools are doing, are really focusing on the social emotional learning piece. So, for example, I'm looking at bringing in sports for learning because I'm getting students who are a little bit too intense when they play soccer. And it's because they've been away from each other for a long time, they're competitive. But if we have mentors there who are actually guiding them, teaching them, and doing activities with them, they can learn to be collaborative instead of competitive. But throughout the entire school, we are doing community building circles, we're doing you know, friendships clubs, we're doing the big emphasis for us is making sure that we're forming communities within the classroom and forming communities outside of the classroom. But yes, there has been a lot of social loss.
Thank you.
You know, I'd just like to commend the parents over your school. I've driven by a few times when you're getting out, and that is a fiasco over there. There's no doubt. But you know, everybody seems so patient, respectful, which says a lot, I think, of you and the school too. I mean, the PTC at Glenwood I've always been impressed with. I think it carries over there, but it is impressive to see how they're setting an example for the kids, for the community, and it really is good. So.
Yeah, it
Just
was.
want to add that in there.
It was definitely a nightmare when we first opened up and said, "Uh-oh, the front of the school's gone. Now we have to open up through here." But the parents definitely they got the hang of it and they kind of understand it now, and they definitely are so patient.
I am impressed with their patience. Exactly. Yeah.
Any other questions or comments?
Just that, will we give reports from everyone? Can you make sure that we get all the reports? Thanks.
I'll go ahead and just try to look over.
Excellent.
Thank you.
Excellent. Thank you so very much. Okay, and with that, we will move on to facilities update.
Good evening. Well, I'd like to thank the principals for giving some of the updates for the facilities. We are currently in the mode of moving, preparing for that. Just to show you how much progress we've made in the last couple of months over at Robla. We went from foundation to building to interior finishes over the last couple of months. We are primarily focusing on the learning environments. Our goal is to move in furniture next week with materials, with the teacher materials and room materials the following week. So we are currently working through that process right now. As the board may recall, we had to expand the scope in terms of doing the asphalt. We had a lot of failures in the asphalt we discovered as we were going through the construction process. That work will probably be completed early next year, the blacktop area. So when we open school in the beginning of the year, we'll primarily we'll have the whole inner core available as well as the NPR, and we may just be finishing up some of the asphalt work. But overall, we are very much focused on getting students and the classrooms ready for January 3rd. So very, very, very busy over here at Robla. Same thing over at Bell Avenue. We are working to to get that prepared and ready to go. They're a little bit further ahead than the other two sites, but we're very excited about getting folks in there as well. Also on January 3rd, that'll be a continuing theme here. And we are just trying to make sure that everything is certified and ready to go for occupancy. At Glenwood, we're so busy we didn't even have photos, but I promise you there is a building there. And we are working tirelessly to get the front of the school open as well for that January 3rd opening date. We're also obviously trying to facilitate the New Hope Charter and their abilities to get online as well. I think we have a pretty good solution out there right now. The primary issue remains electricity. We have a temporary power solution that's currently in place, and that it will hold us for some time. But due to some of the supply chain issues we've been having with some of those components that we've talked about the last couple of meetings, we think we'll finally have permanent power, if you will, a permanent power solution sometime in February. So we found a solution to make sure everything functions. I'd like to commend the new Chief Technology Officer, Elliot, for his willingness to jump into the barrel and help us out wherever possible. I'd like to thank all the principals for putting up with us over the last couple years. I know Ms. Newhouse is looking forward to August 2022 when she establishes her executive lounge, which will be the 10 portables once they're vacated. Overall, we don't have much of an update today, just to say that we're pushing towards January 3rd. We're moving a lot of furniture next week. We're moving a lot of boxes the week thereafter, unpacking the week thereafter that, moving towards that January 3rd date to make sure students are able to get into their classrooms. We feel pretty good about achieving all those things at this point in time. But once again, we ask for people's patience, and we thank everybody for their patience up to this point of getting there. And to the board, I know you're anxious to see some of these buildings and so forth. We ask that you just wait till January 4th to show up so that we give you a proper tour. And I know Superintendent Reyes and his office have been coordinating with us, putting together a ribbon cutting ceremony for the Robla school, which I think is tentatively on January 14th. Is that correct?
Friday, yes.
The Friday. It's early. So we're hoping to have all those things to do. So it's a little bit of just a overall kind of picture where we're at, but January 3rd. On January 4th, I think you'll see Ron and I, hopefully with smiles. But otherwise, yeah, I think we're making progress as best we can. So happy to answer any questions you may have at this time, just regarding the projects. But we're kind of all in the same phase right now, for better or worse, at all three projects, and that's just getting people moved in.
Any questions or comments? Thank you so very much. Thank you. And then we'll move on to general obligation bond sale summary.
Hello again. As the board is aware, and the public may be aware as well, we have been going through the process of issuing the remaining authorization for Measure K. This is the election that was approved by voters back in 2014. And we are happy to report that we had a successful sale of the bonds right before Thanksgiving, and the transaction actually closed today. So the money was deposited into the county accounts to make use for the district's use for future projects. Here's this overall timeline. We kind of started this whole thing in October, worked throughout November to get it all put away, and then we're closing. Like I said, we closed this morning, actually. A couple of key highlights here is that we have continued to maintain the district's rating. Happy to report that we are at a AA3. That's a highly rated bond. We have been frequent enough in issuers, whether it be refundings or new money transactions, that we have a pretty good rapport with Moody's at this point. Overall, I just wanted to commend the district's and its fiscal management. That's something that they look at very strongly in combination with the overall district's tax base. So I want to commend everybody for continuing to maintain that rating, because the higher the rating, the lower the interest rate, the lower the borrowing cost it is for the district. And even though we're at historic lows in terms of borrowing costs, every little hundredth or thousandth of a percentage point helps when you're multiplying by millions or tens of millions. So just wanted to commend everybody on that. In terms of the summary of the sale, we sold $7,296,711 in general obligation bonds. We did leave $3,289 in remaining authorization. If for some reason in the future we have another bond authorization, we will clean that up. But that's primarily due to the combination of current interest bonds, which are that are typically sold in round denominations. So all those bonds end at 0, and capital appreciation bonds, which are calculated out to a maturity value and then brought back down to cents and dollars. So that's what causes that rounding down from the $7.3 million of all the available authorization. Overall, the bonds were sold at a true interest cost of approximately 2.7%. So just kind of put that in more general terms. If you take out mortgage, it's kind of, what was your total financing costs as a product of your loan? So 2.7 or 2.69 is incredibly low, with a repayment ratio of approximately 1.68 to 1. That means that over the life of the 20-year loan, for every dollar of principal that was borrowed, 68 cents in interest cost will be paid back in addition to that principal amount. So for every dollar you borrowed, the total cost will be about $1.68 for every dollar you borrowed. That's extremely low. In fact, the state maximum threshold is 4 to 1. So the state actually says that you can enter into a loan where the interest rate would result in a borrowing cost of up to $4 to 1. So we're actually even about half of that overall. As I mentioned before, this particular issuance of bonds will have a term of 27 years, and the bonds will be fully repaid August 1st, 2048. Just want to give the board and everybody else a kind of a quick summary of the debt service schedule. What we did in this particular case is, because of the Prop 39 authorization, we are limited to a $30 per 100,000 of assessed value tax rate. That requires us to make sure that all the bonds that are sold within Measure K adhere to that. So what we had to do is wrap around what we call the existing bonds. So you'll see for this particular series of bonds, in the beginning years, the payments are quite low, and then over time, those increase as more taxing capacity comes available because the previously issued Measure K bonds are repaid. So as additional taxing capacity becomes available, we use it in order to service, make the principal interest payments on the bonds. As I mentioned, it's a combination of current interest bonds. Those are bonds that have semi-annual interest payments. About 30% of the overall principal was financed through current interest bonds, and about 70% were financed through capital appreciation bonds. This is where the interest payments actually accrete and accumulate over time and are paid at one lump sum at the end of their maturities. Just a quick little note, if you want to know the total amount of interest that's going to be paid for the $7 million, $7.3 million, it's approximately $4.9 million in interest. And that goes back, if you take the math, it goes back to that 1.8 to 1. All in all, the total debt service will be about $12.2 million for the $7.3 million that have been borrowed. Delivery date expenses, these are the costs that were associated with the transaction. So approximately 2.4% of the total amount of the principal was dedicated to cost of issuance. The financial advisor, bond counsel, underwriters counsel, rating agency, paying agent, and other professionals. There's an additional $47,000 in costs for the underwriter's discount. That's the fee that the underwriter takes to negotiate with the individual investors to buy the bonds. And then bond insurance premium as well, which is about $18,000. Typically, in a bond issuance where you have a rating of AA3, traditionally, or I guess in normal times, we haven't really necessarily seen the demand for bond insurance. But in this particular case, there were a few maturities in particular where there was a buyer that said, hey, I'm willing to buy it at the interest rate that you're offering at if you offer bond insurance. And so we took advantage of that. And so we used it where it was economically feasible. And we had to pay a premium of about $18,000 to do that. The underwriter's discount and the bond insurance premium are paid out of the transaction itself, or within the interest cost of the transaction itself, whereas the cost of issuance are paid out of the principal amount of the bond issuance. This is probably the lowest cost of borrowing we've had for any of the bonds we've had at Robla over the last 10 years. A lot of that is timing with the market. Part of that is the ability to maintain the rating. But I think all in all, probably sometime in the summer of next year, we'll be able to give you guys a summary of both Measure K and Measure H, just kind of give you an apples-to-apples comparison of the borrowing over time. But overall, very successful sale, received very well, and happy to answer any questions you may have at this time.
Questions?
I'll just note that that bond will be fully repaid 2 months short of my 100th birthday. And I hope I'm not still on the board then.
Thank you so very much for your presentation. All right.
Thank you.
All right, now we move on to first interim budget.
Good evening, President De Luz, board members, and Superintendent Reyes. We are presenting the FAIR 21-22 first interim, keeping in mind our vision statement. Every student reaches their potential in a growth-minded environment, reaching challenging practice and reflected learning for all. That overview will be covered. The first interim report covers the actual expenditures from July 1 to October 31st, and it also includes the projections for this fiscal year and the next two fiscal year. We will discuss our assumptions that are included in the first interim, things that we know as of now. The general fund, we will go very detail. Some significant changes, what is new in the first interim compared with the adopted budget. We will discuss other funds because we have more than like the building fund, child development, some other funds, our multi-year projections, some fiscal indicators. This is something new that I want to show it tonight. Some opportunities and challenges, our next steps and recommendations. So our budget assumptions. So the biggest is always just our average daily attended, our enrollment. So for this year, 21-22, our average daily attendance is 1967. That's our funded ADA. And as a reminder, we are getting funded based on the average daily attendance from 1920, 2 years down the road due to COVID-19. However, the following 2 years, we're getting funded in our current ADA that is about 1,875, 1,875 average daily attendance. So all the COVID-19 funds are included, and the latest cost of living adjustments are included. In October, we did a presentation based on the enrollment. The whole presentation was about our enrollment, but this is our actual enrollment from DataQuest, what we reported in October, except for this year and the following year our projections. So everything we're counting pre-COVID, after COVID. So we had lost 128 students from March, from previous to pre-COVID. That is a significant decline in enrollment. The good thing is that like I explained before, the declining the rate is a lot lower than what happened in the last fiscal year. So that's a significant assumption in our projections. Oh, it's not moving. Okay. Now we will discuss the general fund. The next 7 slides are all about the general fund, and we have 4 components in the revenue section. That is the general fund, the local control fund, the formula, the majority is through ADA. Our federal revenues, that includes all the COVID-19 funds in Title I. Other state revenues, such as special education, lottery, those are the most significant. And then also any local grants. And right here too, there's some funding that comes through SCOE, and they transfer that to us. that is included in the local revenue. So 4 big parts of the revenue. This graph is just the same data as this, just on graphs. This is just so the local control funding formula, 97% is unrestricted funded, but when we combine it as a whole, that is 60%. Federal funds is significantly high in this year is due to COVID-19. So that's the revenues now is the expenditure sections. Just like the revenues, our expenditures are also break down between restricted and unrestricted. 88% of our expenditures on the budget are from the unrestricted is salaries and benefits, and when we combine it is 82%. So certificated salaries in the school budget is anybody who has a teaching credential is on this line. Classified salary is anybody who doesn't have a teaching credential. Another way, some people say people who are in CalSTRS, going certificated, and people who are in CalPERS are classified. But so there's some exceptions there. Sometimes that benefits is just all the statutory benefits and health benefits for those 2 certificate and classified salaries. Another big significant is right here is the operating expenditures. It includes all the utilities and all the contracts that we have regarding special ed. So this is for total expenditures, or this is our total for the general fund. And then this is just the same as for the unrestricted. Again, this is just on breakdown in a pie chart, the same data that we discussed before. So within the general fund, there's a word that they call it encroachment. I like the word contributions better. These are programs that we receive some funding from the state and federal, but it's not enough to cover the required expenditures. And the majority is like a special ed and the restricted maintenance, the deferred maintenance. Those are programs that unrestricted contributes to these programs. So $3.6 million. So you have seen this similar slide. So this is within the general fund and the restricted. You have here this what is called the COVID-19 funds. So there is actually 15 buckets in the COVID-19 funds that we have been tracking since COVID started in March 2020. So we have received 13.8 million. As of last fiscal year, we spent 3.8 million, leaving us for 21-22, what is disbursement on about 10.1 million. We are projected to spend 5.8, leaving us for 22-23 about 4.3. So these are requirements. Each one is at least quarterly report, and there's a lot of work behind that to that's just a summary that, but I want to be very transparent so you will see like why you have such a big fund balance this kind of year. This is mainly due to this COVID-19 funds that we are tracking, and a lot of these things requires plans that we need to develop and how we are serving the community or our students. So so this is a summary of 27 pages in your report, and each line in here is actually you saw it in the presentation. So this fine total revenues, you see that in slide 5. So that was an expenditure you saw in line 7. So this is a summary of the whole thing as a whole. So we are projecting for this year to increase our fund balance by about $4.8 million. I guess pretty much federal funds that we are planning to extend it for another at least another year. So what is new? What has changed since the last time we were here for the adopted budget? And then in the first one is One is the Splendid Learning Opportunity Program. Actually, CDA just released the update just a few days ago. So we have $2.1 million of this program that we're including the revenues because the state award that, but we don't have any expenditures in detail yet because we have to ask you for your approval. We need to have a detailed plan how we're going to use these funds. This is new ongoing funds. So that is new. So you will hear more about this plan. There's a lot of information that Ms. Lyon and I are kind of digesting what we need to do with these funds. There's a lot of, but I want to give you that requirement is that pretty much we have to offer up 9 hours or available where kids could attend school for activities. That's the main thing. So this is new. Another thing that is new is, we adopt a budget prior to the state passing the budget. So one of the last changes based on the population of students that we serve, the concentration component went from 50% to 65%. So that gave us an additional about $915,000. This one has a string attached to it. What it means is we had to spend this money in staffing to provide service to students. We have not hired a lot of staffing. However, we have lost 120 students and we have maintained the staffing. So that's like providing the services that we are required. So that's how we want to do our auditors. We 120 students, but we still have maintained our staffing. So another significant change is that you are aware, you approved is the new independent studying requirements. With that, a lot of details come after the adopted budget. We had to create an MOU with our RTA, and that creates additional expenditures. That is also new in the first year. So within our district that doesn't have only all of this discussion was a general fund, but we have other funds, and two the ones, every fund that we have is in here, but I want to discuss the Cafeteria Fund. The Cafeteria Fund, our district did actually really good during COVID-19 because we were serving students or kids all the way to 18. So during the year and a half that we were doing that, we actually make some money. But the state, the federal says, well, that's good that you could money, but you could not have too much money. So we can only have up to only 60 months of operating expenditures in your fund. So we have approved from the state to spend the money in about the next 2 years. So you will see a decreasing balance in the Cafeteria Fund. The other one is the building fund. We were planning to use to complete our project this year. I want to know that we received the county receipt, as mentioned by Mr. Flores. We received the county received the cash today. That $7.3 million is not included. So when I come back in the second, you will see that the additional funds available for us. So that's our district as a whole. So our multi-year projection, I was watching on YouTube, several of you watched the fiscal outlook for the state. This is our fiscal outlook based on that information that we get for our district. So as a whole, we are in good shape. You see that's because due to federal funds, what is heading us. So this year we are good. The next following 2 years, we project a deficit spending. You see, like this probably it's not significant for the 2022-23 due to mainly to a lot of one-time funds that we're gonna use. So that's as a whole. However, if we look deeper into our district, if we just take out all the COVID-19 funds, all the restricted funds, if we just look at what we're gonna have, the ADA as a whole, so we will see the drop is actually very is significant. We will drop our fund balance by about 1.5 in 22-23, in 22-23, $2 million, and it's really mainly because our declining enrollment. That's it. That's our expenditures continue to increase, but our decline in enrollment, even though the state is giving us our current projections more money per ADA, we are receiving, in the revenues, we're receiving less revenues in 22, 23 than current year, and we're receiving less money in 23, 2 years down the road, 24.7 compared to the 25.1 this year. And that's just about 1 point when you calculate the ADA is about a little bit over 1.5 for due to the decline in enrollment. So decline in enrollment to a district of our size is painful no matter what, but to our district size is really, really painful. So this is a new slide. So this is what how the county, the state kind of grades warnings for our district, this additional fiscal indicator. This is one of the the document that President DeLuz and Superintendent Reyes is included in that report. And you will see that our 9 fiscal indicators, we have no in 8 of them. That is really good. However, we have a yes in declining enrollment. That is our risk, and it is significant. So what are opportunities and challenges? That's just how we could make the COVID, the one-time funds be successful to help our districts set up for the future. So we don't really have a challenge this year, and I will say even the following year, but what will happen the year after that. The short staffing and hiring, that has been a big challenge for us. We are competing not just with other school districts or counties of the state. We are competing with a lot of private industries where they could just increase. That's a big challenge. Used to take us, like a lot less to hire people. Now people are not even applying for positions. And the other one is the supply chain shortage. It is real. I just want to give you an example. The plastic forks, we have supplies for 1 more week. And after that, we are going to go buy real forks. We're going to wash them, and that's what we're going to provide to our students, because we cannot just buy forks. Things that used to take us 2-3 days now takes months, or they're not available. So we are that has been a challenge too. So with all the uncertainties, research are critical. So our next steps, we will attend our next governor's budget workshop. That's where this became official. How the state sees what is our portion of our share for K-12. I'm happy to report that 2 of our bargaining units, the presidents, we signed them. They are attending the workshop, so they are here to send information. We are coming back for the second annual in March. The auditors are completing their audit report. And one step is continue the initiatives to increase enrollment. I think that's our biggest risk. So we all that say that we are asking the board to approve our first annual with a positive certification. Meeting, we are able to meet our obligations for this fiscal year and the next following 2 years. You will notice the arrow is not the top green or in the middle. There's a risk due to the declining and to declining enrollment. And of course, if that comes back in the next year, we get brand new schools. But declining enrollment, I want to just take a moment. It's actually a statewide issue. They're talking about. I don't know if you hear that and. When you were it's just an issue. They are calling actually the ADA cliff. That's what is hurting the students, because the state has money to give to students, but there's just less students. That's less students. So that is something that this is hurting us too. So, and thank you for listening, and I'm available for any questions. Probably went too long, but after all those presentations, but.
Any questions?
Okay.
Thank you so very much. Excellent presentation.
Thank you, Mr. Castillo.
Yes.
Okay, now we'll move along to presentation for first reading of revised policies, regulations, and/or exhibits.
This is just our regular effort to keep our board policies up to date. So as is our general practice, we present these to the board tonight to review for the next month, and then we will bring them back in January for your approval.
Excellent. Okay, now move on to the approval of the consent agenda. I'll entertain a motion to approve.
So moved. Second.
It's been moved and seconded. All those in favor, please say aye.
Aye.
Opposed? Abstentions? Motion carries unanimously. All right, now we'll move on to action items. I'll start with item A, Comprehensive School Safety Plan for 2020 through 2023. Moved and seconded. Would you like to?
Yes, just that this is a required action by the board to review and to approve annually, not annually, that's correct. It is annually. It is annually. Our safety plan. So we have not made any changes to the plan. And our review says that it has all the components that we needed to have. And this is just the board. We're just asking the board to approve this for this new school year.
Any questions or comments? Hearing none, move forward to a vote. All those in favor, please say aye.
Aye.
Opposed? Abstentions? Motion carries unanimously. Item B, Sierra School non-public school.
So moved.
Second.
Been moved and seconded.
This is a contract dictated by the needs of a particular student in our district and the services that are required in order to meet the conditions and the needs outlined in his IEP. So we bring this contract to the board to allow us to deliver those services to that student.
It's been moved. Is there any discussion?
None.
Hearing none, move forward to a vote. All those in favor, please say aye.
Aye.
Opposed? Abstentions? Motion carries unanimously. Item C, approve Educator Effectiveness Grant Program.
So move.
Second. Been moved and seconded.
This is the plan we brought to the board last month for your review. Again, this is funding, and we did have to develop a plan for the use of those funds, and we're asking the board to approve that tonight.
Is there any discussion or debate? Hearing no, move forward to a vote. All those in favor, please say aye.
Aye.
Opposed? Abstentions? Motion carries unanimously. Item D, positive certification of the 2021-22 first interim financial report for the period of July 1st, 2021 through October 31st, 2021.
So moved.
Second.
Moved and seconded. Is there any discussion or debate? Hearing no, move forward to a vote. All those in favor, please say aye.
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 Opposed? Abstentions? Motion carries unanimously. Item E, transportation MOU with Gateway Community Charters.
So move.
Second.
Any discussion or debate? Hearing no, we'll move forward to a vote. All those in favor, please say aye.
Aye.
Opposed? Abstentions? Motion carries unanimously. Item F, New Hope Charter Custodial and Maintenance MOU.
Mr. President, if I could just comment on these next three items, because they are all very similar. These are new MOUs that we are creating with New Hope. Mr. Pagani could not be here tonight, but they are requesting that the Robla School District provide certain services to New Hope, to the students at New Hope. And now that those students will be coming to school, we're very excited about that. We want to be sure that we have these services in place. Now, it could have been an option for New Hope to go out and just find consultants to provide these services. But in our analysis and in talking to our chiefs, it feels like in order for us to maintain the Robla quality of how we do things, that we felt it was best served to provide these services to New Hope. The thing that we think it's very important, a few things that I want to make sure I reiterate. First of all, this is not a way for the district to make money. We are not in the business to make money on these things. What we are simply trying to do is provide a service, and what we charge New Hope will be what it costs us to provide that service. This is also not providing a service that just gives our employees more work to do. Our employees, as you well know, work very hard already and already have enough to do. So in order to provide these services, much as I think the Gateway MOU has been a fine example of that, in order to provide transportation for Gateway, we hire a bus driver to do that. That driver remains an employee on our books. It allows us to make sure that we get to hold on to an employee. We invented this during a time when we were having to make cuts. And then we charge Gateway what it costs us to provide that service to them. So this is very much in that same vein. I think it's very important that the board understand that. This is not just us giving away work. This is us hiring the employees that are needed in order to provide this service to New Hope, and allows us to maintain a level of service that we think is good for our community. So that's true of these next 3 MOUs.
Okay. Is there any reason we couldn't, in a motion, take up all 3 in one motion?
There is not a reason not to do that.
So we could discuss an individual motion in that respect, though, right?
Yes.
Okay, I move to adopt the next 3, E, F, and G.
I second.
Been moved and seconded. Is there any discussion or debate?
Yeah, I do have a quick,
F, G, and H.
okay.
We already did E.
So E through H, okay.
F through H.
F through H. F through H.
F through H, I'm sorry. Oh, yeah, that was Gateway, I'm sorry.
Yeah.
So the question I have is, on the custodial, will we be hiring additional custodial?
What we would need to, Mr. Kazuo can speak to this, but I'm pretty sure all of our custodians are already very busy.
Yeah, that's right.
So our plan is in the MOU.
If you could speak into the microphone, please. Thank you.
Part of the MOU is through hire point FTE to do part of their cleaning and their maintenance for their facility, and they agreed to do that. So that's kind of like the plan. You know, we're having a hard time to hire. We want to recognize that. If we cannot have on time, there's a plan B where we could have for a certain time, they could have like a company cleanup, but they had to be, the fingerprinting they had to be clean. So there might be some temporary plans that we don't have. At the beginning, we will have SAS. They have been trained under our guidelines already. So that's the plan.
Okay, thank you.
And I just want to reiterate that, Mr. Castillo, because I did meet with the CSEA president today, and she did ask me that question. So I want to be sure that we are stating publicly, this is not, the students will be showing up very soon, and we probably will not have time to hire people to provide these services. So we do have an interim plan, and that interim plan is to not have our current employees simply do this work in addition to their current job responsibilities.
Yeah, we have discussion today. So if we are by tomorrow morning, if we don't have anybody on place or SAP, I will call their CBO, and they will have a company who has been, they will show us their fingerprint, and they will do that for the first week, and then we go week by week, so to give us time to hire staff. So that's the plan.
Thank you, yeah, because I know our custodians are busy.
Yeah.
Thank you so much.
Hey, any other discussion or debate? Hearing no, move forward to a vote. All those in favor, please say aye.
Aye.
Opposed? Abstentions? Motion carries unanimously. Item I, approve prime contract change order number 11 to the construction services agreement with Flint Builders for adjustment of costs for Bell Avenue Elementary School new classroom and administration building.
I'll move.
Second.
Do you want to talk a little bit about this?
Yes. This, if approved, this prime contract change order would represent an increase to the GMP. The increase is 0.69% of the current GMP amount. There are 3 big items on there that incorporates the bulk of this increase. One was the utilities that had to be ran for the additional marquee and flagpole that we wanted on this part of the campus. The campus already has a flagpole and a marquee sign, but the district decided that it would be great to have a marquee sign and a flagpole near the new building that's coming up. And so that was an additional cost. Once the parking lot was installed, we saw some needs for some additional safety features, bullards. The principal identified that there could be a speeding opportunity, so we wanted to put speed bumps and some extra striping. So that was an additional cost. And the other item had to do with the classrooms itself. There was an error in the design as it related to the marker boards, how they slid away from the windows. The original design by the architect did not allow the classrooms to benefit from all of the daylight harvesting that's required by the state to harvest as much daylight. And so we had to modify all of the rooms so that we could harvest all of the daylight within all the rooms. And those are the three significant additions to this project through this prime contract change order. The other ones are pretty minor things that came up. Low voltage had to do with some front-end items that the district needed as related to technology. That's the bulk of this particular PCCO 11.
Maybe too much detail to ask how you change the harvesting of the daylight. The windows are set in place, right?
They were, but how we had designed the marker boards, the sliding marker boards, the architect failed to design the wall in a way that the marker boards would clear the windows.
Oh, okay.
And so,
okay, I understand that.
So the marker boards, the way that they were originally designed, would have blocked a portion of the window in one direction. And so, in fact, it was one day myself and Emilio was walking it, and Emilio caught it. So, you know what? I don't think that's going to slide the way that he intended it to. And he was correct. So the architect had to redesign. So that came into errors and omissions. And so, and that was the largest cost in this particular
Okay, all right.
item. Mm-hmm.
I was envisioning you were going to have to change the windows.
Yeah, no,
Okay.
no.
Thank you for catching that.
Yeah. Mm-hmm. Yeah, it would have been a big miss if Emilio hadn't caught it. So. Yeah.
Okay. All right, with that, did we get a motion already on the floor? Okay. Any discussion or debate? Hearing none, we'll move forward to a vote. All those in favor, please say aye.
Aye.
Opposed? Abstentions? Motion carries unanimously. Item J, approve unpaid leave of absence for Natasha Zisk, fourth grade teacher at Robla School, beginning February 2nd, 2022 through June 15th, 2022, for child rearing purposes.
So moved.
Been moved and seconded. Is there any discussion or debate? Hearing none, move forward to a vote. All those in favor, please say aye.
Aye.
Opposed? Abstentions? Motion carries unanimously. Item K, approved an unpaid personal leave of absence for Jerumi Salazar Luivanos, a 3.75-hour, 10-month instructional assistant at Robla Preschool, beginning December 6th, 2021 through December 16th, 2022 for child rearing purposes.
So moved.
Second.
Been moved and seconded. Is there any discussion or debate?
I just have a question I'm going to ask the superintendent. Is that Tarumi or Harumi? Okay, all right. Just out of curiosity, yeah. I wasn't trying to correct you, I just curious.
It would not have been the first time I have butchered someone's name.
Actually, you do very well, Mr. President.
Okay, is there any discussion or debate? Hearing none, we'll move forward to a vote. All those in favor, please say aye.
Aye.
Opposed? Abstentions? Motion carries unanimously. Item L, addendum, approve 0.75 FTE, 6-hour, 10-month instructional assistant, 3 roving positions funded by special education.
Second.
It's been moved and seconded. Is there any discussion or debate? Hearing none, we'll move forward to a vote. All those in favor, please say aye.
Aye.
Opposed? Abstentions? Motion carries unanimously. Board member requests for future agenda items or reports. Trustee Devine.
Nothing at this time?
Trustee Cardona.
Nothing?
Trustee Barnes. Trustee Boyd?
Just, I have one thing. If we could revisit the having board meetings at the various schools in the second part of the year, if we could revisit, have a discussion on the issue.
Sure.
Okay, and I have nothing new. And so with that, this meeting is adjourned. Thank you so very much for everyone who's here in attendance and for everyone who's watching online. Have a good evening.
And have happy holidays.
We have a board meeting next week. It's not,
Good meeting.
Excellent meeting, excellent.
well, it's not.
Went to school in the Steelers game.
Oh,
They were
I-
getting creamed, I think.
Yeah, I don't think your Steelers showed up.
Yeah, I know.